The emergency alarm screamed through the halls of the Federation Central Command. Admiral Zextar pressed his blue-scaled hands against the cold metal table as he stared at the red warning lights flashing across the massive display screen. Another world had fallen, the 17th in just 3 months. "Show me the damage report," he said to his aide, Commander Velthos. His voice was steady, but inside, fear ate at him like acid. The screen changed to show what was left of Kepler-7, where green forests and blue oceans had existed just days ago. Now only gray dust remained. The Vorthak Empire had stripped the planet bare, taking every living thing to fuel their war machine. Millions of people gone, turned into biofuel or worse, converted into mindless drone soldiers. "Sir, the Vorthak fleet is already moving to their next target," Velthos reported. "Our scouts say they're heading for the Centauri system. 4 billion civilians live there." Zextar closed his eyes. In his 150 years of service, he had never seen anything like the Vorthak. They fought like a virus, consuming everything in their path. Their biomechanical ships could heal from damage. Their soldiers felt no pain, no fear, no mercy. Worst of all, they learned from every battle, adapting their tactics faster than the Federation could respond. "What about our defense fleet?" Zextar asked, though he already knew the answer. "Destroyed, sir. Admiral Quintar's forces lasted 6 hours. The Vorthak used some new weapon. It turned our ship's own shields against us." The door to the command center slid open with a soft hiss. High Counselor Mexandi walked in, her golden robes trailing behind her. Other council members followed, their faces showing the same hopeless expression that Zextar felt in his heart. "Admiral," Mexandi said, her voice carrying the weight of their dying civilization, "the Emergency Council has been in session for 12 hours. We need options." Zextar turned to face the most powerful beings in the galaxy, representatives from 1,000 worlds, species that had built wonders beyond imagination, all of them looking to him for answers he didn't have. "Honorable counselors, our military analysis is complete. At current rates of expansion, the Vorthak will control half the galaxy within 2 years. Their forces grow stronger with each victory, while ours grow weaker." "What about the weapon research projects?" asked Counselor Brintel, his insect-like eyes clicking nervously. "All failures. The Vorthak adapt too quickly. Any advantage we gain lasts for 1, maybe 2 battles at most." The council chamber fell silent except for the distant hum of the space station's life support systems. These beings had created a peaceful society that spanned the stars. They had solved problems through diplomacy and science for thousands of years. But the Vorthak didn't want to talk. They only wanted to consume. "There must be something," Mexandi said. "Some ally we haven't contacted. Some weapon we haven't considered." Zextar had been dreading this moment, but he knew it would come. He walked to his personal data pad and pulled up a file he had hoped never to open again. "There is one possibility," he said slowly, "but I don't think you'll like it." The main screen changed to show a small blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful. Nothing about it suggested the horror that Zextar was about to propose. "This is Sol 3, also called Earth by its inhabitants. It's located in the Outer Rim territories. We cataloged it about 300 years ago during the Great Expansion Survey." "I don't recognize this world," said Counselor Thexam. "Why wasn't it invited to join the Federation?" Zextar pulled up the original survey report. The words on the screen made several council members step back in shock. The survey team classified the dominant species as unsuitable for galactic civilization. They called them humans. The report lists their primary characteristics as aggressive, violent, and displaying what our scientists termed pathological persistence in warfare. The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. These were concepts they barely understood. The Federation had been at peace for so long that most species had forgotten what real war looked like. The survey team noted that humans had developed over 15,000 different ways to kill each other. They had been in a state of continuous warfare for their entire recorded history. Their planet was covered with the ruins of civilizations that had destroyed themselves through violence. "And you're suggesting we contact these monsters?" Mex Andy asked, her voice filled with disgust. I'm suggesting we're desperate enough to try anything, Zextar replied. Look at this. The screen showed footage from the Vorthak attack on Rigel Prime. Biomechanical war machines tore through Federation defensive lines like they were made of paper. Soldiers fled in terror as Vorthak drones advanced with unstoppable determination. Then the screen switched to footage from humanity's own surveillance networks. It showed human soldiers in some conflict on their homeworld. But these humans weren't running. They were advancing under heavy fire, their faces showing not fear but grim determination. When their weapons broke, they made new ones. When their positions were overrun, they fell back and counterattacked. They never stopped fighting. The survey report noted something else. Zextar continued. Humans don't just fight to win territory or resources. They fight for ideas, for people they've never met, for principles they believe in. The survey team couldn't understand it. They called it irrational self-sacrifice for abstract concepts. This is madness, said Counselor Velness. We're talking about allying with primitives who solve problems through violence. These primitives have survived on a death world for millions of years, Zextar shot back. They've fought through ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and constant warfare. They're still here, they're still fighting, and according to our long-range sensors, they've recently achieved faster than light travel. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some members thought the idea was insane. Others wondered if they were already dead and just didn't know it yet. The Vorthak were coming, and nothing they had tried had worked. Finally, Mexandy raised her hand for silence. Admiral, assuming we could contact these humans, what exactly would we ask them to do? Zexatar looked at the peaceful blue world on the screen, then at the desperate faces around him. We would ask them to do what they do best, what they've always done. We would ask them to fight. 3 days later, the fastest ship in the Federation fleet approached the Sol system. Captain Rindar had volunteered for the mission, though he wasn't sure why. Maybe because someone had to take the first step into the unknown. Maybe because he was tired of watching worlds die. The response from Earth came faster than expected. A single transmission, brief and to the point. We're listening. What happened next would change the galaxy forever. The Federation had spent centuries trying to bring peace to the stars. They had built a civilization based on cooperation and understanding. But now they were about to learn that sometimes, to protect the light, you have to call upon the darkness. Earth was ready to answer that call. The transport ship Terran Dawn docked at Federation Central Command with a grinding sound that made the alien technicians wince. The human vessel looked nothing like the sleek, curved ships the Federation was used to. It was all sharp angles and heavy armor, built for war rather than beauty. Colonel Lisa Hayes stepped off the ship first, her boots making heavy sounds on the metal deck. Behind her came 200 human soldiers, and Admiral Zextar felt his confidence shake as he watched them. These weren't the noble heroes he had imagined. They looked tired, scarred, and dangerous. The humans wore mismatched equipment and carried weapons that seemed too big for their frames. They talked loudly among themselves, pointing at the alien technology and making jokes Zextar couldn't understand. One soldier, Sergeant Kate Williams, was already taking apart her rifle to make improvements before they had even left the docking bay. "Welcome to Federation space," Zextar said, trying to sound official. "I am Admiral Zextar, Commander of Defense Operations." Colonel Hayes looked him up and down with cold blue eyes. "Colonel Lisa Hayes, Terran Defense Force. We got your message about needing help with some bug problem." "The Vorthak are not bugs," Zextar said, feeling offended. "They are a sophisticated enemy force that has conquered 17 worlds in the past year." "Right. Bugs with fancy ships," said Captain Tony Walsh, the human engineering officer. He was already studying a Federation data pad, frowning at the technical specifications. "Your weapons are pretty, Admiral, but they're not built to kill things efficiently. The first briefing was a disaster." The Federation officers presented their careful plans for defensive operations and evacuation procedures. They showed the humans detailed charts of Vorthak attack patterns, and explained their philosophy of minimizing casualties while protecting civilian populations. The humans listened for about 10 minutes before they started asking questions that made the aliens uncomfortable. "What's the blast radius on their bioacid weapons?" asked Major Rick Anderson. "Why does that matter?" replied Commander Velthos. "Because if we know how far the acid spreads, we can use it against them." Use it against them? That's horrible. Captain Maria Santos, the psychological warfare specialist, was studying Vorthak combat footage with the intensity of a scientist examining a new virus. "They're using fear as a primary weapon," she said. "Look at how they position their forces. They want civilians to see them coming. They want the panic." "Of course they do," said Zextar. "It's part of their terror strategy. Then we use that against them too," Santos replied with a smile that made Zextar's scales crawl. The first joint operation came 3 weeks later. The Vorthak had attacked the mining world of Kepler 442b, and Federation High Command ordered a standard defensive response. They would use their shield generators to protect the main population centers while evacuation ships removed the civilians. Colonel Hayes had other ideas. "We're not running," she told the Federation commanders. "We're going to hit them before they can set up their base camp." "That's suicide," Admiral Zextar protested. "The Vorthak landing force has 50,000 biotroopers and 12 heavy war machines. You have 200 soldiers." "We have 200 humans," Hayes corrected him. "There's a difference." At 0400 hours, while the Federation forces were still setting up their defensive positions, Major Anderson led his strike team into the Vorthak landing zone. They moved through the darkness like ghosts, using night vision equipment the Federation had never seen before. The first Vorthak patrol never knew what hit them. Anderson's men didn't fight the biotroopers directly. Instead, they sabotaged their communication equipment and planted explosive charges on their heavy weapons. When the biotroopers tried to adapt to the attack, Sergeant Williams collapsed a mining tunnel, burying an entire formation under tons of rock. By dawn, the Vorthak landing zone was in chaos. Their command structure was broken. Their supply lines were cut, and their biomachines were turning on each other due to corrupted control signals that Captain Walsh had introduced into their systems. But the humans weren't finished. They started teaching the miners how to fight back. Simple tactics like setting traps and making improvised weapons. The civilian population, which the Federation had planned to evacuate, became a fighting force. "This is wrong," Admiral Zextar said as he watched the humans arm children with mining explosives. "These people are not soldiers." "They are now," Colonel Hayes replied. "The Vorthak made them soldiers the moment they decided to attack this world." The battle lasted 3 days. When it was over, something unprecedented had happened. The Vorthak invasion force was not just defeated, it was destroyed. The survivors fled in panic, something no Federation officer had ever seen before. But Admiral Zextar felt sick as he toured the battlefield. The humans had won, but the methods they used haunted him. They had captured Vorthak bioweapons and turned them against their creators. They had used the enemy's own tactics, but with a creativity that terrified both sides. Captain Santos had figured out how to jam Vorthak hive mind communications, causing their formations to attack each other. Major Anderson had captured a bioprocessor and reprogrammed it to produce toxins that specifically targeted Vorthak physiology. The humans fought like the Vorthak, but worse. "You've saved the colony," Zextar told Colonel Hayes as they stood among the wreckage of Vorthak war machines. "We've won a battle," Hayes corrected him. "The war is just getting started." News of the human victory spread through both the Federation and the Vorthak Empire faster than anyone expected. The Federation world celebrated, but their military leaders grew worried. The humans weren't fighting like heroes. They were fighting like something the galaxy had never seen before. In the Vorthak Empire, confusion spread through the hive mind. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, they had met an enemy that thought like they did. An enemy that could match their ruthlessness and exceed their creativity and destruction. The Vorthak Queen Mind issued new orders to all invasion fleets. The small blue world in the outer rim was now classified as a primary threat. The species called humans were to be eliminated with extreme prejudice. But the humans were ready for them. Captain Steve Miller's Void Warfare Unit had been studying captured Vorthak ships, learning how their biotechnology worked. Dr. Ellen Foster's research team had developed new weapons based on Vorthak biology, designed to cause maximum damage to their specific physiology. 3 months after the first battle, the humans had reclaimed the entire Centauri cluster. What Federation strategists said would take decades, human forces accomplished in a single season. But each victory made the aliens more nervous about their new allies. The humans weren't just winning battles, they were enjoying them. They celebrated, not just victory, but the process of war itself. They had found something they were naturally good at, and they were getting better at it every day. Admiral Zextar stood in his command center, watching reports flow in from across the galaxy. The Vorthak were retreating for the first time in their history. The Federation was winning the war, but as he watched footage of human soldiers laughing as they destroyed Vorthak positions, he wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. They had asked for heroes to save them. Instead, they had awakened something that might be more dangerous than the enemy they faced. The war room at Federation Central Command had never been so quiet. Admiral Zextar stared at the tactical display showing the latest human victories across the galaxy. Red markers indicating Vorthak-controlled systems were disappearing at an alarming rate, replaced by blue human flags. In 6 months, the humans had accomplished what the Federation thought impossible. But the reports coming back from the front lines made Zextar's blood run cold. "Show me the Rigel system analysis again," he said to his aide, Commander Velthos. The screen displayed footage from the recent battle. Colonel Dan Cooper's Rapid Response Unit had attacked a Vorthak stronghold that the Federation had written off as unwinnable. The enemy had turned 3 moons into fortress worlds, defended by millions of biotroopers. The humans hadn't tried to break the defenses. Instead, they had done something that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They had captured Vorthak breeding facilities and turned them into weapons factories. Using the enemy's own biotechnology, they created custom viruses that specifically targeted Vorthak neural systems. They released the virus into the atmosphere of all 3 moons simultaneously, Velthos reported, his voice shaking. The entire Vorthak garrison was dead within hours. What about the civilian populations on those worlds? The humans evacuated them first. They said the virus was designed to only affect Vorthak biology, but... Velthos paused, looking uncomfortable. But...
What?
Some of the evacuated civilians are showing signs of psychological trauma. They say the humans were too efficient, too calm about using biological weapons. The children are having nightmares about their rescuers. Zextar closed his eyes. The humans were winning the war, but they were also changing the nature of warfare itself. They approached destruction with the same methodical efficiency that other species used for construction projects. The door to the war room slid open, and High Counselor Mex Andy entered with several other council members. Their faces showed the same mixture of relief and horror that Zextar felt. "Admiral, we need to discuss the human operations," Mex Andy said. "The Ethical Review Committee has finished analyzing their tactics. And they're using methods that we didn't even know existed. Captain Steve Miller's Void Warfare Unit has been boarding Vorthak ships and converting them for human use. But they're not just taking the ships. They're keeping some of the Vorthak crew alive for research purposes." Counselor Brintel stepped forward, his insect-like eyes clicking nervously. "Dr. Foster's research team has created weapons that we can't even classify. They're using Vorthak biology against itself in ways that our scientists say should be impossible." The tactical display changed to show the most recent human operation. Fleet Admiral Nancy Turner had been given command of the largest Federation human joint fleet ever assembled. Their target was the Crimson Nebula, where the Vorthak had gathered their most powerful forces for a final stand. "Show me what happened at the Nebula," Zextar ordered. The footage that played made several council members leave the room. Admiral Turner had ignored all Federation battle protocols. Instead of engaging in traditional ship-to-ship combat, her forces had used the nebula's gas clouds and electromagnetic storms as cover for boarding operations. Human assault teams, led by Major Chris Jackson, had moved through Vorthak bioships like a plague. They didn't just capture sections of the enemy vessels, They reprogrammed them, turning the ship's own biological systems against their crews. Vorthak breeding chambers became human weapon factories. Control nodes became relay stations for human communications. The battle lasted 18 hours, Velthos reported. When it was over, the humans had completely destroyed the largest Vorthak fleet in history. But they didn't just defeat it, they absorbed it. What do you mean, absorbed it? Mexandi asked. They kept the useful parts, ships, technology, even some of the Vorthak themselves. Captain Julia Roberts' information warfare unit found a way to break into the Vorthak hive mind. They're using captured Vorthak as living computers. The council chamber fell silent except for the hum of the life support systems. These beings had created a peaceful civilization that spanned the stars. They had built their society on principles of cooperation and mutual respect, but the humans operated by completely different rules. There's something else, Zextar said quietly. The psychological evaluation reports from our liaison officers. He pulled up a classified file that only the highest-ranking officials were allowed to see. The document contained interviews with Federation officers who had served alongside human units. Lieutenant Commander Kexrel served with Colonel Hayes' unit for 3 months, Zextar read. His report states that the humans have changed since the war began. They're becoming more efficient at killing, but also more distant from their own emotions. They talk about enemy casualties the way our people discuss industrial production numbers. Another report appeared on the screen. Commander Yilton was present during the interrogation of captured Vorthak prisoners. He says the humans used techniques that extracted information faster than any Federation method, but the prisoners were changed afterward. Broken in ways that medical science can't explain. They're becoming like the enemy they're fighting, Mexandi said, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Zextar corrected her. They're becoming something worse. The Vorthak fight to consume and expand. The humans fight to win, and they're very, very good at it. The tactical display showed the current state of the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just a year ago, was now in full retreat, their forces scattered across space, fleeing from human hunting parties that tracked them down with relentless efficiency. But the human-controlled territories were expanding just as rapidly as the Vorthak Empire had shrunk. Worlds that had been liberated by human forces were now hosting human bases and research facilities. The humans weren't just fighting the war. They were claiming the galaxy. Admiral Turner has requested permission to pursue the retreating Vorthak forces into their home territory, Velthos reported. She says they can end the war completely within 6 months. And what does she want to do with the Vorthak homeworld? Asked Counselor Velness. Zextar pulled up Turner's operational plan. The council members who were still in the room read it in stunned silence. She wants to sterilize it, he said finally. Complete biological elimination of the Vorthak species. She calls it a permanent solution to prevent future expansion. The implications hit everyone at once. The humans weren't just winning the war, they were preparing to commit genocide, and they were discussing it as calmly as if they were planning a mining operation. We have to stop them, Mexandi said. Stop them from doing what? Zextar asked. Winning the war, protecting the galaxy, or becoming exactly what we asked them to become. The truth was painful but undeniable. The Federation had begged the humans to save them from monsters. The humans had agreed, but the price was becoming monsters themselves, and now they were very close to becoming something even more terrifying than the Vorthak had ever been. Outside the war room, human ships patrolled Federation space, hunting the last Vorthak survivors with the patience of predators. The galaxy was safer than it had been in years. But safety had come with a cost that the Federation was only beginning to understand. The Vorthak homeworld burned in the void of space. What had once been the heart of a galactic empire was now a dead rock floating in darkness. General Pat Murphy stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Terran Sovereignty, watching the final bombardment through the view screen. Target eliminated, reported Captain Alex Turner from the weapons station. No signs of remaining biosignatures on the planet's surface. Murphy nodded, making a note in his tactical log. 6 months of hunting had led to this moment. The last Vorthak stronghold was gone, along with the last members of their species. The war was over, but Murphy felt no celebration, only the quiet satisfaction of a job completed. "General, we're receiving a transmission from Federation Central Command," said Communications Officer Julia Roberts. "Admiral Zextar wants to speak with you." The main screen changed to show the familiar blue-scaled face of the Federation Admiral, but something was different about Zextar's expression. Where Murphy had expected to see relief or gratitude, he saw fear. "General Murphy, congratulations on your victory," Zextar said, though his voice sounded hollow. "The Federation owes humanity a great debt." "Just doing our job, Admiral," Murphy replied. "The Vorthak threat has been permanently eliminated." "Yes, we received your report. A complete sterilization of their homeworld and all colony systems. Very thorough." Murphy sensed something in the alien's tone that he didn't like. "Is there a problem, Admiral?" "The Federation Emergency Council has been in session for the past week. We've been discussing the post-war situation, the terms of humanity's integration into galactic society." "Integration?" Murphy's eyes narrowed. "We didn't ask to be integrated into anything. We came here to fight a war, and we won it." The conversation was interrupted by an incoming message from Earth. General Lisa Hayes appeared on a split screen, broadcasting from the Terran Defense headquarters back in the Sol system. "Pat, we need to talk," Hayes said. "I just got out of a meeting with Federation diplomats. They're offering us membership in their little club, along with territorial rights and trade agreements." "Sounds generous," Murphy replied, though he could hear the skepticism in Hayes' voice. "Too generous. They're scared of us, Pat. They want to tie us down with treaties and obligations, make us part of their system so they can control us." Admiral Zextar's image flickered with nervousness. "General Hayes, the Federation simply wants to ensure a peaceful transition to post-war stability. Your people have proven themselves to be very effective warriors. We believe that proper integration will benefit everyone." Hayes laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You mean you want to make sure we don't decide to keep expanding?" The thought had occurred to some council members, Zextar admitted. Murphy looked around the bridge of his ship. Human crew members worked at stations filled with technology that hadn't existed when they first answered the Federation's call for help. Hybrid Vorthak human weapon systems, biocomputers running on captured alien neural networks, ship designs that combined the best of 3 different species engineering. They had changed during the war. All of them had. The humans who had arrived at Federation space 2 years ago had been soldiers fighting for a cause they believed in. The humans who remained were something else entirely. They were weapons that had learned to think for themselves. "General Murphy," Zextar continued, "the Federation is prepared to offer humanity significant territories in the Outer Rim, worlds suitable for colonization, trade routes, access to our most advanced technologies." "In exchange for what?" Murphy asked. "In exchange for agreeing to Federation oversight of your military operations and a gradual reduction in your armed forces to levels more appropriate for peacetime." The bridge fell silent. Every human officer turned to look at their general, waiting for his response. These were people who had spent 2 years learning to be the galaxy's most efficient killers. The idea of giving up their weapons and submitting to alien oversight was not going over well. "Admiral," Murphy said slowly, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't come here to become your citizens, we came here to solve your problem." "And you did solve it," Zextar said quickly. "The Vorthak are gone. The galaxy is safe. Now we can return to peaceful cooperation." "Can we?" Hayes interjected from Earth. "Because according to our long-range sensors, there are at least 6 other hostile species operating in unexplored sectors. The Vorthak weren't the only threat out there." Zextar's scales shifted color, a sign of extreme distress. "Those species are distant. They pose no immediate threat to Federation space. They pose no immediate threat to Federation space because you've never encountered anything like us before," Murphy corrected him. "But now you have, and so will they." The truth hung in the space between the human and alien commanders. The Federation had created something they couldn't control. In their desperation to survive, they had awakened humanity's capacity for warfare and given it advanced technology and galactic-scale targets. The Council has concerns, Zextar said carefully, about humanity's methods during the war. The biological weapons, the interrogation techniques, the treatment of prisoners, these actions go against fundamental Federation principles. Those actions won your war, Murphy replied coldly, and they'll win the next one too. There doesn't have to be a next one. Admiral, with respect, that's not your decision to make anymore. The transmission from Federation space cut out, leaving only Hayes's image on the screen. She was smiling now, but it was the same smile that had terrified Vorthak prisoners during interrogations. Pat, I just received authorization from Earth. Command. We're establishing permanent bases in 17 systems. The Federation can keep their membership offer. Copy that, General. What about the alien concerns over our methods? They wanted heroes to save them from monsters, Hayes said. Instead, they got us. We're not heroes, Pat. We're what happens when someone asks humans to solve problems with violence, and we're very good at solving problems. Murphy looked out at the dead Vorthak homeworld one more time. In 2 years, humanity had gone from a single-world species to the galaxy's dominant military power. They had ships that could cross the galaxy in weeks, weapons that could sterilize planets, technology that let them turn enemy biology against itself. Most importantly, they had learned that they enjoyed being good at warfare. The Federation had given them a purpose, and now that purpose extended far beyond the original mission. General Hayes, Murphy said, what's our next objective? Long-range scouts have identified possible threats in the Andromeda sector, some kind of machine intelligence that's been consuming star systems. The Federation doesn't even know it exists yet. Sounds like they'll need our help again soon. They will, and when they ask, we'll be ready. Because that's what we do now, Pat. We're the galaxy's solution to problems that can't be solved with diplomacy. Murphy nodded, already planning the next campaign. The Federation had wanted heroes to save them and then disappear back into the Outer Rim. Instead, they got humanity. And humanity was here to stay. The galaxy was safer now, protected by the very thing its civilized inhabitants feared most. A species that didn't just know how to win wars, but had learned to love the winning. The Federation had created their own guardians, and now they would have to live with the consequences. Outside the view screen, human ships patrolled the darkness between stars, hunting for the next threat to galactic peace. They would find it eventually. They always did.